it. All right, let's jump right in. We are tackling maybe the biggest question in modern cannabis genetics. What is OG Kush? I mean, you see it everywhere, right? On every menu.
Yeah, it's absolutely defined the smell, the taste, the whole vibe for, what, nearly 3 decades now?
Exactly. But our sources, they're really pushing us to think differently about it. Not just as one single strain, but more like a foundational genetic blueprint, a dynasty almost that totally reshaped the industry.
That's really the heart of this deep dive. OG Kush isn't just popular, it's the genetic keystone. Our mission here is to try and grasp just how dominant it became.
So we're tracking the origins.
We're tracking the origins, definitely following those critical clone lines, the cuts, and trying to measure the, frankly, staggering scale of its descendants.
Yeah.
We're talking, based on the sources, well over 800 direct variants.
800, wow.
Yeah, so we need to rewind like 30 years back to this single kind of accidental origin point in Florida, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then follow that specific clone line as it just exploded across the West Coast.
And ended up forming the backbone of pretty much everything we call gas or mint or even those dessert strains today.
That's the claim. It's foundational.
It really does feel less like farming and more like mythology. And the origin story, it starts somewhere unexpected, you said. Florida, not California.
Right, Boca Raton, not the Emerald Triangle, which is where you might expect.
Okay, so what's the actual DNA? What makes up OG Kush, or what people sometimes call Triangle Kush?
So the sources seem pretty clear on the basics. It's a cross between Hindu Kush and this unverified Emerald Triangle hybrid.
Hindu Kush, okay. And some mystery hybrid.
Essentially, yeah. And the fact that arguably the most famous strain ever comes from these two, distinct regional lines crossing paths is kind of remarkable in itself.
And the Hindu Kush part has its own story, right? This is where some key figures start popping up.
Totally. The Hindu Kush side is like classic landrace Afghan stuff, heavy, resilient. According to the stories, it was smuggled from Amsterdam back to Florida by this guy known as Marty.
Smuggled. Oh.
Yeah, and apparently he was just a teenager at the time. So he brings this ancient Afghan genetic line into South Florida.
A teenage smuggler basically laying the groundwork for a global cannabis dynasty? That's wild.
It really is.
And the other half, the Emerald Triangle hybrid. That sounds more mysterious.
It is. That lineage is way less clear.
Yeah.
Sources kind of agree it was some untested hybrid that made its way from Washington state down to Florida. But the key detail everyone mentions.
What's that?
Marty apparently accidentally pollinated the two plants, the Hindu Kush he brought back, and this mystery hybrid. And it happened in a very specific house in Boca Raton.
Ah, the sources mention the 432 house. What is that? Like a code? It sounds so specific.
Yeah, it does. It's apparently a well-known reference within those early cultivation circles.
Yeah.
Not the full address, obviously. But that house is pinpointed as the spot, the mythical birthplace where the accidental pollination happened.
So that cross, the heavy Hindu Kush structure meets whatever the California or Washington hybrid brought to the table. That's OG Kush.
That's the original spark. And the accidental nature of it all is what makes its later dominance just so mind-blowing.
Okay, so the spark happens in Florida, this potent fuel-smelling hybrid. But the real explosion happens when it goes west, right? That move is critical.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Without that West Coast move, OG Kush probably just stays a Florida thing, a local curiosity. But the sources, they strongly support an OG clone like the foundational cut moving from Boca Raton to LA, early 90s.
And specific people involved in that transfer.
Yeah, figures like Bubba are mentioned, that it eventually gets into the hands of the breeder Josh D. That single move, that one clone going from suburban Florida to the heart of SoCal cultivation, probably the most important supply chain event in modern cannabis history.
So it lands in LA. But it doesn't just stay as one plant. It gets cloned, selected,
stabilized,
right. This is how we get from one plant to 800 descendants. Because the original DNA just expressed itself in lots of different ways.
Exactly. Those are the classic cuts or phenotypes people talk about. That initial DNA was, let's say, vibrant, but maybe unstable. Cloning allowed people to find and keep the best expressions.
The expressions that became the benchmarks, the classic OGs.
Right. When someone talks about a classic OG, they mean one of these specific phenotypes that got locked down through cloning. They set the standard for potency and that unique gas profile.
Let's pause on gas for a sec, because OG Kush basically invented that profile, didn't it? For anyone listening who needs context, what does gas or fuel even mean?
It's all about the terpenes, primarily. High levels of marcene, caryophyllene. They combine to create this smell people describe as like diesel fuel, pine needles, earthy. but super pungent. Overwhelming, really.
And that often translates to a heavy effect.
Often, yeah. That heavy physical feeling. The Hindu Kush parent probably provided that earthy base and structure, and the hybrid side just amplified those feel notes.
Yeah.
Boji Kush defined that potent, gassy profile.
Got it. Okay, so back to those first-generation cuts that came out of LA. The list is pretty long in the sources, but which ones were really foundational for everything that came next?
Well, you can kind of groove them. There's the Florida expression, which became known as Triangle Kush. Many consider that the purest, maybe leaning more towards that Hindu Kush side.
Right.
Robust,
Oh,
perfect.
Triangle Kush.
Then you've got the major California adaptations, SFV OG, San Fernando Valley, and Tahoe OG. SFV OG in particular became really popular for breeding because it apparently grew well, good yields.
Right, SFV and Tahoe. And then there were the ones known just for sheer power, the potency cuts.
Oh yeah, that's where names like Fire OG come in, known for its red hairs and just extreme strength. And Ghost OG, which had a reputation for a strong head effect.
And specific breeders were key here, like Josh D.
Josh D, definitely. And the sources also mentioned the ORGNKID, OG ORGN clone line. These folks were meticulously preserving specific traits. That's how we ended up with names like King Louis XIII, Platinum OG. And even more specialized kind of protected cuts like Hollywood Pure Kush, HPK, or the historic 92 OG.
It really sounds like by the late 90s, breeders saw OG Kush DNA as this amazing building block. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got structure, we've got potency, we've got that unique gas smell. Now what can we bolt onto it?
That's a great way to put it. The OG skeleton was just perfect.
Yeah.
And you see it immediately in the, let's call it the immediate family. That heavy Hindu influence gets leveraged again.
Like with Bubba Kush.
Exactly. Bubba Kush, including those famous early versions like Pre-98 Bubba and Katsu Bubba. It's basically an immediate offspring, refining OG's heavy effects into what became the modern, slightly sweet indica profile.
So Bubba is like OG's first big hit offspring.
Pretty much. And you also saw other early successes, like God's Gift. That took OG Kush's fuel and married it with the purple, grapey sweetness of Granddaddy Purple, showing you could mix OG with fruitier stuff.
Okay, this is where it starts branching out like crazy. The first-gen pivotal hybrids. The sources call the OG Kush diesel crosses seismic. Why was that such a big deal?
Well, think about yield and flavor maximization. The OG cuts, amazing as they were, could be tricky to grow sometimes, maybe lower yielding. The diesel genetics, especially sour diesel, brought big plant structure, great yields, and its own pungent, kind of rubbery fuel smell that complemented the OG.
So crossing them gave you the best of both.
Right. The yield and structure from the diesel, plus the knockout potency and that signature piney, earthy gas from the OG, it was a win-win.
And that gave us legendary strains like Headband or 818 Headband, which is OGX sour diesel, and just sour OG.
Yep, those became massive. But OG's influence didn't stop with diesels. Think about how it impacted sativa-leaning strains, too.
Like what?
Well, Ghost Train Haze, that's Ghost OG crossed with Neville's Wreck, it used that solid OG backbone to kind of anchor a really energetic haze, giving it more density, maybe a higher potency ceiling than haze alone.
Okay, grounding the haze.
Or think Bruce Banner. That's OG Kush crossed with Strawberry Diesel, again using the OG structure to stabilize the sweet, fruity side of Strawberry Diesel while adding its own power.
You really can't map this era without talking chem and white crosses too, right? For even more potency and that frosty look.
Absolutely essential. The chem lines coming from ChemDog already had that intense fuel and unique, almost chemical or cleaner smell. Crossing OG cuts with those. Pure powerhouses.
Examples being?
The sources point to ChemDog, OG, and Motorbreath, which is ChemD, crossed with SFV OG. These really push that gas profile into overdrive. Super dense, super strong.
And the white crosses, what did they add? I know Wi-Fi OG, Whitefire OG is huge.
The white refers to that strain famous for insane trichome coverage, just frosty white. So it represents extreme visual appeal, bag appeal, and pure THC production. The most famous cut, Wi-Fi 43, used Fire OG crossed with the white.
Ah, so Fire OG's heavy effect plus the white's frosty look.
Yep.
Exactly. Instant hit commercially and for breeding. Same idea with Holy Grail Kush, crossing Kosher Kush with OG #18 two heavy hitters combined. The pattern is just crystal clear. OG Kush was the reliable engine, the source of power and that fuel structure everyone wanted to build on. Okay, so let's fast forward. What does all this history mean for someone walking into a dispensary today? If the 90s and 2000s were about classic OGs and those first big crosses, the last decade seems dominated by dessert and cookie strains. Is OG DNA still relevant in that market?
Oh, absolutely dominant, maybe more than you'd think. Breeders quickly realized that while things like cookies and gelato had amazing new flavors, sweet, creamy, fruity bakery smells, they sometimes lacked heft, structural stability, or that overwhelming potency people still associate with top shelf.
So OG Kush became the
It
fix.
became the structural support, yeah. It adds density to the buds, helps stabilize the plant structure, prevents too much stretch maybe, and injects that reliable high-testing potency. It's like the rebar in the concrete.
So the OG is like the secret ingredient ensuring the dessert strains aren't just tasty, but also strong and well-structured.
Precisely. And the sources list tons of modern staples built this way. OGKB, OG Kush Breath is an obvious one, but also Doozy Doughs, Animal Mints, Triangle Mints, Wedding Cake, Cookies Kush, Gelato, Biscotti, even Runtz. Significant parts of their lineage trace straight back to those early OG cuts.
And the names often just tell you the story, right? OG plus the new flavor.
It's become the ultimate cosign for quality. You see it everywhere. La Kush Cake, Sherb OG, Skittles OG, Gelanade OG, Gary Payton OG, Tropicana OG. The name signals potency and quality because of the OG part. The formula is consistent. Take the OG power and structure, graft on a trendy new flavor profile. That's the modern playbook. OG ensures the quality floor. The new cross provides market appeal.
Which loops us back to the sheer numbers. We started with one accidental plant in Florida, one clone moving west. What are the final totals again? Just how dominant is this one lineage after 30 years?
While the main headline figure, approximated from all the sources, is 800 plus direct descendants of OG Kush. That counts distinct clones, established seed lines, major regional variations. 800 plus.
Yes, wow.
And it gets even more granular. Bubba Kush, its first huge offspring, has generated 300 plus known variants on its own. It's practically its own dynasty now.
300 from Bubba alone.
Yeah. And those cornerstone California cuts, SFZ OG, Tahoe OG, and the original Florida Triangle OG, each of those accounts for over 100 variants themselves. Stabilized, adapted, tweaked across different regions.
It absolutely confirms the premise. OG Kush isn't just a strain. It's arguably the most essential genetic link in modern cannabis. The quiet foundation under almost every successful commercial profile today.
It truly is the genetic bedrock. And the amazing part is how this cross of rugged old landrace Afghan plus some unverified mystery hybrid created something so adaptable. A blueprint that worked for heavy indicas, fuel-back hybrids, soaring hazes, and now even sweet, complex dessert strains.
It's a testament to finding that perfect genetic combination, even by accident.
Totally. The enduring power of foundational DNA.
So the final thought for you, the listener, as you kind of process this huge genetic family tree, given how it started smuggled seeds and accidental pollination in some Florida house, how did this specific combination end up creating such an irreplaceable, globally dominant blueprint?
Yeah, it wasn't some planned breeding project, right? Not at all. So how did that accident produce something so potent and versatile? And maybe think about this. Are there any other single genetic lines in any kind of agriculture or breeding that hold this much influence, still dictating flavor and structure 3 decades down the line? It's a fascinating question. How did that one mistake in the 432 house give rise to something so powerful that even today breeders instinctively reach back to OG genetics when they need to guarantee potency? That journey from accidental genius to global dominance, that's the story here.